But yeah, let's get right into the next topic here. You wanted to up something that's culturally relevant right now. Dom, what is that?
Yep, all over the Twitter sphere. Been seeing a lot of hashtag 7favegames. So I figured we'll each go through our 7 favorite games. And keep in mind that these are completely subjective lists. You know, these are what your favorite games are, not what you objectively think is the best game. So
should we do one first at a time? Bounce around one at a time?
Should we do like each of our 7s, or should we go you 7-1, me 7-1, him to 7-1?
We should go one person goes through their whole list, because you want to look at the list as a whole.
Okay.
That way, when I'm done, you guys can say like, yeah, that list fucking sucks. Where's
so I think the best way to do this, so it's also time efficient, is give a short synopsis of why it's on your list and why you like it so much, and then move on to the next one. Because we can sit here and probably this could be its own podcast on itself if we took a long time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we'll just pretty much crank through each game and maybe a couple words on each. So I'll bat first.
On through.
The first couple for mine, actually my entire list was pretty easy for me to make, especially the first couple. Number 1, Ocarina of Time. There was no question about it. It's the greatest game ever created. So anyway, number 2.
Oh, you're going 1 to 7. I thought you were going 7-1. Make it exciting.
No, too late now.
Okay.
So. That's just the order of the list as I wrote it down. So anyway, number 2 was also an easy one. Dark Souls 1, absolute masterpiece. There's essentially nothing wrong with this game except for some frame rate issues on a very few areas, but just a whole new formula. It did a whole new thing. So I could go on and on about the brilliance of Dark Souls 1. So number 3, Fallout 3. It's just Fallout 3. I mean, I don't even know what else to say about it. This was tough, actually, between 3 and 4, because my number 4 is Fallout New Vegas. I've always struggled with which of these I like better. All the different factions you can join in New Vegas, and it just feels like a bigger world, and there's kind of more moving parts going on. But then on the flip side, 3 has that stronger central narrative of you're trying to find your dad and purify the water and all that. But both great games. So number 5, The Last of Us. This was going to make the list. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I wish I could put it higher, but absolute masterpiece. Pretty near perfect game in my opinion. Number 6, Number 6, Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare. This was kind of like the Dark Souls of first-person shooters. Like, it did something that started a huge trend that's still going on of this fast-paced modern military business. This is probably the game I put the most hours into out of any game. I used to be stupidly good at this game. Me and my friends would just play it for probably 2 years straight, every single day for hours. Like,
I can see little Jiggy getting down with some Xbox 360 COD.
Middle school on Xbox, man, like Call of Duty 4 was just like it was everything. Like, and there was that.
It was lit, bro.
Yeah, and I dislike it because for a while there, for a couple of years there, that was all I wanted to play was Call of Duty games. That was all I would buy. That's all I cared about. Jesus. So I missed out on a lot during that time that I had to later catch up on. Number 7, this was a tough one. I left out Witcher 3, Bloodborne, Kingdom Hearts, and a couple others to put Super Mario 64 at number 7. This was another game growing up, was just amazing. Everything about it, like a huge world. You could jump into these different paintings and go to very different kinds of worlds, and it was such a huge game, like all these secrets and all these different stars you had to collect. Awesome game. So that's my top 7.
Do you want to go first, Jordan, or do you want me to go?
Yeah, I'll go. By the way, Dom, From Software and CD Projekt just called, and they had a joke. It was really funny. They said that you left both of their latest 2 games off of your list for The Last of Us, and I was like, no way, guys.
He has the first Dark Souls, which I think the first Dark Souls is better than Dark Souls 3, but they're both way better than Dark Souls 2.
So, I guess that means you think Dark Souls is better than Bloodborne, original Dark Souls?
Yeah.
I would say so, too. But Bloodborne is...
Wait, but have you played Bloodborne, Jared?
I've watched a playthrough front to back, which is... I've seen gameplay and everything. It's enough to get an idea of the game. That game... I would see why that game is somebody's favorite game over the Dark Souls games, because it's different than them. Like, it appeals to a different type of person, I think.
Yeah, there's 6 different weapons in Bloodborne, couple different sets of armor. That was it for me.
Way more.
It was all well compared to Dark Souls. It's like 10% of the RPG elements that that Dark Souls has. So that's the biggest difference for me. That's why. But preferences, right?
Yeah.
So you can tell a lot about me from looking at my list here. 5 of the 7 games that I have listed are third-person action-adventure games. And those same 5 are also from this generation of consoles. So most of these games are very new.
I already know what number 1 is.
Well, that's the thing is I was also going to say I didn't do them in order just because I can't. I seriously can't.
It's tough. It's painstaking.
Yeah. Okay.
What were you going to say number 1 was, though, Jared?
Witcher 3, obviously.
Well, it is probably, yeah, if I had to put a number 1 on something, it would be Witcher 3. And it is on my list, so I can go ahead and go with that one. Yeah, one of the best video games ever made. Looks great, sounds great, feels great, plays great. The RPG elements are there. The diversity of gameplay is there. The story is absolutely there. Yeah, I mean, you guys have heard me talk about Witcher a bunch. You can check out my review if you want to know more about that. It's The Witcher is one of those games that isn't perfect, just like any other game, and it is a masterpiece, but its flaws are really forgivable, and it's also really, even the flaws that it does have don't stick out so hard that they ruin the experience for you, as opposed to some other games like the next one on my list, Bloodborne. The flaws in Bloodborne really, really stick out to me. They really show, especially when you're like 100 hours into the game, they really just start to stick out at you, and they are a little bit worse. They're thicker. They're bigger flaws. Bloodborne's one of those games with really fast-paced and punishing combat, but it's still most of the time fair. When it's not fair, when it gets unfair in Bloodborne, it gets really fucking unfair, and it's just absolutely ridiculous.
2 words. Get good.
I mean, yeah, or it's just like, okay, I'm like way over leveled for this boss, and I'm still not even doing a dent, So it's like I've gotten good and gotten better, and you're still like, you guys just don't know what the heck is up at this point. So
the most unfriendly community of gamers is the Souls community. They will just tear you apart.
Yeah, you either get it and like it, or if you don't like it, or you don't get it, or you're having a little bit of frustration. Even if it's the smallest bit of frustration, they'll just tell you you're not good enough. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's true in a sense, Dom, but at the same time, I also think that the Souls community of gamers is one that really bands together, especially when the games first come out.
Yeah,
because
it's the most passionate, probably.
Yeah, they have to help each other find their way through the game. So, next on the list, I mentioned I played this past week, Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. This game, hell, it might be my favorite of all time if they had actually finished the fucking thing. Like I said, you basically beat the game, and then you have to redo the last few missions of the game on harder difficulty with debuffs unlocked. So that you can get the true ending, which I already watched on YouTube months and months ago as soon as it was available. So, this game, the fact that it isn't completed it grows more obvious and more painful the more you play it, because you realize how much repetition there is. You realize the fact that even though it is open world, there's really only 2 environments, and it's either Africa or the Middle East, and you're in one of those 2 spots, and it's kind of just like wide open desert with huts and buildings in some places. The more you play this game, the more it feels incomplete, and that kind of sucks the life out of it. So whenever I think about Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain, it is with a somber note, because wow, the ways that game could have soared if it just if they had let him complete it, even though he had plenty of time. He had more than enough time to complete it, so I'm not going to say if they had given him enough time, because they gave him enough time. He just needs to quit. Kojima, just needs to quit obsessing over the stupid tiny little details that really don't matter, I think, in his games, and that'll help him out a lot. Next up is BioShock. No surprise here.
Ooh, good one.
One of my favorite games of all time, and I've mentioned that before. I cannot wait to play this on the collection when it finally comes out this fall. Yeah, I mean, BioShock, it definitely has its flaws, but as far as the narrative, the sense of mystery and atmosphere that you get in Rapture, there's no video game environment that is like Rapture. And there's something we need more of are bold games. Going back to my topic, type of game that we need more of are games with really bold premises and really bold environments and atmospheres that really try to do something new and fresh. And I think Dishonored took that from BioShock and decided to do just that, and I appreciate them for that. Yeah, BioShock's combat is really cool. The plasmids are really cool. I'd really love to see 2K Marin, if they are the ones working on the next BioShock, and it's not 2K Australia. Not sure about that, but I'd love to see them return to form for BioShock, because both BioShock 2 and Infinite were pretty different from the first. Then just rolling through these next two, you've heard me talk about them so much on this podcast. Infamous Second Son and Sunset Overdrive, my two favorite superhero games. Also, we were talking about superhero games earlier, and I didn't shout out Quantum Break. That is really a superhero game when you look at it, and deserves more credit than it gets. But with these two games, just really wicked, fast-paced combat. Love just rolling through and just beating up some baddies, kicking some ass, and rolling right back out. The traversal is really big in both of these games. Once you get the video power in Infamous, and once you get the not only the sliding on the rails mechanic, the grinding mechanic in Sunset Overdrive, but also the air dash to keep chaining those together. Both of those open world cities just open up to you, and it becomes a whole new game. And the traversal in those games is so essential to the fast-paced combat that those games will be nothing without them. So I love those games. And then the last one here is a little bit of a curveball, because like I said, most of these games are new, and most of these games are third-person action adventure. So the last game on my list is Pokemon Silver version.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, this is absolutely my favorite generation. I was debating about going between Crystal and Silver, but obviously I had Silver first when it originally came out, so I just went with that. My favorite generation of Pokemon, it's like the perfect amount, because you have the first 150, and then you have like the next 100 or so. It's under 300 with all the Pokemon in Gold and Silver Gen, so that's like a really good amount for me. I also really like the environment and the gyms in that game, and it was in color, which was really cool. Looks really pretty. Yeah, and love me some blue and red and yellow, but it does kind of feel like going back to those first 150 Pokemon. That first gen does kind of feel a little bit empty sometimes, so it's nice to have that extra bump for the second gen and the amount of Pokemon and also the variety and diversity. So yeah, Pokemon Silver.
Awesome.
Good list.
I actually have a crossover game with Dom and a crossover game with Jordan, kind of.
Okay.
We're running super long, so I'm just going to go through my list really quick so we can close out the show. So number 7 on my list is Walking Dead, the first season. A lot of people like the second season more, you guys included. I liked the first season a lot just because it was one of the first games I ever played that made me care about a character. Like Clementine, that whole story. I really liked the first season of that game. It was an experience I hadn't had in a video game before. Number 6, Spyro the Dragon. It's the first game I ever beat by myself. It wasn't the greatest game, but it does have fond memories of it. That would be cool if that ever got remastered or remade, but it won't. Yeah, I beat Super Mario 64, but I didn't beat it entirely by myself, so I don't really include that. Number 5, Shovel Knight. I've talked about Shovel Knight enough, so I don't really have to explain that one. Number 4, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. basically Dom hit on every point. It basically launched online multiplayer for a lot of games, and for me included. That's probably the game I've played most in my life. Complete cumulative hours.
Wow.
That's the game I played most in my entire life. I would play that game like 12 hours a day for, it was like 6 months. Love that game.
Fucking A.
Yeah.
Jesus. I think Witcher is the longest I've ever spent with a game, and I'm probably maybe like 250 hours into it, maybe a little bit more.
3, Dark Souls. Dom hit on everything. I don't need to explain anything there.
That's a good list, Jared.
Number 2, Soul Silver. Basically, you hit on everything too, Jordan, except Soul Silver is what you remember Silver being. So playing Soul Silver basically bumped up the graphics of the game, added in a lot of mechanics that made the game easier, kind of like a quality of life, kind of a lot of updates. Made the boxes a lot easier to manage, items a lot easier to manage. Soul Silver, I would argue, is the best Pokemon game, period.
Nice.
So it takes Silver was my favorite for the longest time, but Soul Silver, like I said, improved everything. It's the same, literally the same exact game, but a bunch of features that make the game better, and make it a better quality of life. Number 1, Mass Effect 2. I've talked about that game forever. I don't need to explain anymore. It's very Mass Effect is about the world and the universe, and that Mass Effect 2 is definitely about the characters. And I love character-driven stuff, and you learn about those characters and each of the crew members. They feel very important to you. Outside of like Star Wars, it's hard for me to think of like maybe Star Trek, but like specific like sci-fi things that where you care about so many different characters and they're so unique to themselves. Mass Effect 2, I cared about every crew member that was on that ship that I got, and
Wow.
I did it makes you care. Even the DLC was so great. Definitely awesome. That's my favorite game of all time. So that's our 7 fave games for all of us. I think all of us had really good lists. We all had good reasons for everything.
Which was the Dark Souls game in your list?
1, the first one.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you both had Dark Souls 1.
Yeah, 3 is
your
3 is
match.
very good, but 1 definitely had, it was that whole factor of I've never played a game like this before. And I think the bosses are definitely the hardest in Dark Souls 1 out of the 3.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So you've matched on 2 then, I guess.
Yeah, COD 4 and Dark Souls. I forgot they had COD 4 on this list. So I had 3 total with all of you guys.